there, everybody, it is I, Dr. Gag, and I am here to tell you about the land situated between yonder Mississippi stream to where Missouri's waters gleam. And due to this information I have stored in my noggin, I have become the rather preeminent source of information regarding this land known as Iowa. I have become such a preeminent source of information for this land that I have received a letter from a valiant member of the Postal Service. Let me retrieve it for you right now. Ha ha! I see. You require information regarding video games set in this land. Well, let me tell you, I happen to not be the best source of information regarding this. However, I happen to know of an insider within the game collecting community. Let me transfer you to him right away! Thank you, Dr. Gerg. I think. So, U.S. states. They certainly are a thing, and some are much more popular than others, which can plainly be seen when states are used as the setting of video games. For instance, states like New York, which in some cases is more iconic than the United States itself, have plenty of games set within their borders. And on the contrary, smaller states that many people forget about, such as Wyoming, have very few games set there. And of the two categories, my home state of Iowa tends to fall into the latter category. Although having plenty of representation in other forms of media, such as film, video games set within the Hawkeye State are a bit of a rarity. So that's why today we'll be discussing numerous games set within Iowa. And so that nobody gets lost, I'll be marking up this map so that everybody understands where in the state these games take place. Anyway, without any further ado, let's get into this. And to start off, we have the 1993 hit game SimCity 2000. Now, despite this primarily being a city building game, as all the other SimCity games are, this game had an expansion released in 1994, which was titled Scenarios Volume 1 Great Disasters, which, alongside featuring other infamous disasters, it featured the Great Flood of 1993 in Davenport. Well, really the whole Quad Cities, but whatever. Now, is this an accurate representation of the disaster? Well, given that you're tasked with stopping the flood, no, not really, given the fact that most of the city was under 22 feet of water. But I mean, hey, it's accurate in the case that Davenport is the second most despised city in the state by Mother Nature, the first being Cedar Rapids, because I mean, come on, when flood protection is represented in your own flag, that's when you know nature has it out for you. So properly moving into 1994, Cruis'n USA released in arcades and later in 1996 on the N64. As the title implies, you are indeed cruising the USA in various cars across multiple states. One of those states just so happens to be Iowa, and looking at it, corn, farm, more corn, yep, checks out. My only complaint is with this toll booth, because Iowa is part of a fairly small group of Midwestern states which have no toll roads. The only other nitpick I have is that you can't really place it on the map that I have here, so I guess I could just not do that. Yeah, let's not do that. Anyway, next up is the 1998 cult classic light gun arcade game Carnival. And for those of you asking what a light gun game is, well, have you ever played those arcade games where you have a gun as a controller and you have to shoot something to progress? Well, that's what Carnival is. And similar to most of these games where you are either shooting at animals, zombies, or terrorists, Carnival went the zombie route, but took a rather unique route while doing so, as the game is set in a carnival, as the title implies. Now, where does the Iowa connection come into play, you might ask? Well, as described to us in the opening of the game, it centers around a local legend from the fictional town of Greeley Valley, Iowa. Now, despite Greeley Valley being fictional, there is a town named Greeley up by Dubuque, so we'll just say it takes place there and move on. However, we aren't moving on too far, as around 2 years later, in the year 2000, the game Rampage Through Time was released. And what am I looking at here? So, the point of this game seems to be to play as these freaks of probably anything but nature, and destroy numerous towns throughout time. And one of these time periods is the Old West, and we have some pretty famous Wild West towns to destroy, like Dodge City, Sioux City, Tombstone. Wait a minute, why on God's green earth is Sioux City here? Now, for how random this seems, Iowa did have a fair amount of connection to the Wild West, such as the first train robbery conducted by Jesse James being in Adel, and figures like Buffalo Bill Cody and Wyatt Earp either being from here or spending a significant amount of time here, but Sioux City had nothing to do with that. However, I must admit, from what I've heard, this seems to be a bit of an improvement to the town. Now, going around a decade past the release of Rampage Through Time, the film X-Men Origins Wolverine came out in 2009 and thankfully had nothing to do with Iowa. However, the game had an entire boss fight set in the state where you fight against the Blob, set in a grocery store in Elgin. Now, why is there a boss fight in a grocery store in a random town in northeastern Iowa? I have no idea. Now, I have a hunch that the fact that the Blob is the boss probably is an obesity joke, which, I mean, fair enough. Have you seen our state fair? Not saying any of it isn't good food, but, like, sometimes you begin to wonder if fried butter on a stick is an affront to God and a sign that humanity's hubris has gone to depths never intended. Going forward another decade brings us to 2019 when Far Cry New Dawn released, and despite the game mainly taking place in post-nuclear Armageddon, Montana, an expedition mode was introduced which allowed players to travel to a variety of states including Iowa. And immediately upon loading into the expedition, I am confronted with several questions. First off, why does the map look like this? Now yes, there are wetlands in Iowa, but they look like this. Also, last time I checked, Iowa didn't have any mountains or alligators, and since when did Iowa not look like this? I'd like you all to meet Cornelius. However, something neat that was included is the entire reason the map exists. That being this massive government plane wreck, which includes an outfit which references the Splinter Cell games. It's also the best outfit in the game. Don't ask questions, just roll with it. Now, if we were to place the location of this plane wreck, I would assume somewhere in western Iowa, specifically around Pottawatomie County, given its proximity to Strategic Air Command, which is headquartered in Omaha just across the Missouri River. But I can't get any more specific than that because, again, look at the map. The following year in 2020, MLB The Show 21 came out and made us all question if what we are experiencing is heaven. And, to finish the quote, we all realized that no, this is Iowa. So yes, MLB The Show 21 did include a cameo of the Field of Dreams located in Dyersville. So let me just mark that on the map here. Which is from the hit 1989 baseball film of the same name starring Kevin Costner. And, I mean, this does seem to check out from what I've seen, so good job, MLB. I guess if they build it, gamers will come. Anywho, wrapping up our list of confirmed Iowa sightings in video games is Microsoft Flight Simulator, coincidentally also released in 2020. Now, can you fly anywhere in the state in this game? Yes, which is actually really cool. However, it looks a tad flat, but don't fear because the developers took the time to 3D model specific iconic cities throughout the world, and one of those cities just so happens to be Des Moines. So now you can fly all over the city and bask in its cool and iconic landmarks such as 801 Grand and the state capitol, which can I say is easily the best in the country, even putting bias aside. Other less iconic landmarks also make an appearance, such as Wells Fargo Arena, the Soldiers and Sailors Monument, and Principal Park, which is great to see. It's overall just great to see some representation for the capital city of Iowa, which also doubles as its largest city. Oi, sorry to barge in like this, ladies and gents, but I happened to have just been informed of a bonus fact. Let's continue on, shall we? So, while researching this topic, it was brought to my attention that EA Sports College Football 25 was announced. Now, as a man who talks about video games and history as a hobby, I really am not qualified to discuss football. However, it was confirmed that the Iowa State Cyclones and the Iowa Hawkeyes will make an appearance, which is great on its own. Although it wasn't seen in the announcement trailer, we know that Jack Trice Stadium in Ames will make an appearance. Though, something we can see in the trailer is Kinnick Stadium in Iowa City, which just really completes the map, might I add. In the trailer, we can see numerous U of I players doing what is known as the, quote, Hawkeye Wave, which as someone who doesn't normally affiliate with U of I had to look up what that was, and it appears that is a way to show respect to the children's hospital located right next to the stadium, which is actually really cool. Good job, Hawkeyes. And now that we've got through all of our confirmed Iowa sightings in video games, we begin to move into the murky waters of the, I suppose this could count, category. As of this moment, 3 games call this category home, the first of which is actually what most online say the game set in Iowa is, that being Resident Evil 2. Set in the fictional town of Raccoon City, the only concrete information we have about where this city is set is that it is within the Midwest. Now, I found many say that it was inspired by Davenport, which I mean, sure, they kinda look similar. Only problem is, this is a mountainous town. However, if Far Cry New Dawn is to be believed, Iowa is home to some mountain range that society has never heard of, so I suppose we can also let this slide. Moving on to our second game takes us to the superpowered world of Marvel, specifically LEGO Marvel Avengers, and due to it being a retelling of the events of the Avengers Age of Ultron film, it has numerous levels set at important locations from the film, and one of them happens to be Hawkeye's farm. Now, there seems to be a bit of a debate whether Hawkeye's farm actually is located in Iowa or Missouri. However, given the fact that the character is from Iowa, at least according to the comics, also because the MCU wiki says so, I say that there's a good likelihood that it's on the northern side of that border. And now for the third and final game which dwells in these murky waters, we have a very different game from the ones that we've talked about today. It's Shawn Johnson Gymnastics for the Wii. Now, for those of you who don't know who that is, Shawn Johnson is a gold medalist from the 2008 Beijing Olympics, who is originally from Des Moines, and given that she trained in West Des Moines, I would put money on the fact that this game is set in Iowa. Anyway, that's all I got for you, so back to you, Dr. Gerg. Yeah, that guy's a little odd. Why, thank you for putting together that informative presentation about the glorious games set within our glorious fair state of Iowa. However, upon hearing of the heinous crimes committed by Far Cry New Dawn and their portrayal of this fair state, I feel compelled to add them to the list of very un-Iowan items, right below the state of Minnesota. The pretentious jobbernails with their overrated city and a couple of holes in the ground with water? Quite overrated, if I must say so myself.